I'm curious if they try and bait him, him being Jalen Hurts, on like a quick out throw to the slot or to a tight end, maybe like trying to throw hot, and then run a palms coverage and have the corner fall off into it. That's I've seen it happen with Spagnuolo defenses, and I'm just like, that's how Hurts likes to beat the blitz sometimes. So I'm like, that just seems like maybe that might be there. So I think that could be a huge turning point in the game. Obviously, a big turnover.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hanging out at Media Row here in the Super Bowl, Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. They changed the name, not Radio Row anymore, Media Row now. I don't know if you saw the signage, Media Row everywhere.
That's progressive. That's nice.
Very progressive. Hanging out with Trevor Sikkema.
It'll be TikTok Row next year.
Before you know it, it'll be, yes, well, Meta might buy it. It might be Reels Row.
That's true. Actually, we won't even be here. It'll be in the metaverse. The Media Row will be in the metaverse.
That actually, we should talk to somebody about that. Because that could sell, and we could make a lot of money off of that.
Yeah, actually, we got to cut this. We got to cut this part out. That's actually $1 million.
Run it back. Nobody gives that. Dibs. We got dibs.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, now nobody can say it. That's real trademark. Real trademark is just making sure you call dibs.
Yes, that's. But I'm hanging out here with Trevor Sikkema, talking about some, pretty big game coming up here as we're hanging out here in New Orleans. Trevor, we were talking before we started recording. Like, you're doing a lot of different interviews around here. A lot of them aren't necessarily about the game.
Yeah.
How does it feel now as we are getting closer? How do you feel about this game? Just kind of big picture question.
It is funny, like, players will also talk about this. Like, I'm sure that you guys, obviously covering the Chiefs the last couple of years that they've been here, the veterans will tell some of the younger guys, like, if you don't focus on the game, you will lose track of the fact that you have to play the biggest football game of your life at the end of all this, right? I mean, you're doing all these interviews, you're running around, like, it's a very cool, you see, like, all the posters, all the this and that, like, the commercials, the glitz, the glam, everything. You got to play the biggest game of your life on Sunday.
Yeah.
And the veterans, it's kind of their job to get these young guys to hone in and remember that, and it is funny, we're here on Media Row, and we're doing a lot of different interviews and things like that, and I haven't gotten a lot of questions about the game. It's about, like, the offseason and the draft and what's going to happen in the future, and I get all that, and obviously, like, I love talking about it, but you do sometimes forget that, hey, we're here for the last football game of the NFL season. It's a pretty big one.
Yeah, it makes sense. 29 other teams don't have anything else to talk about, right? They don't have any stakes in this game. So we are actually going to talk about this game because I want to get your perspective on a lot of storylines kind of heading into this one. What you mentioned kind of about the veterans and making sure these young guys are locked in here. Chiefs got a lot of guys who have been to Super Bowls before.
Right.
How much do you think? And look, the Eagles, it's not been too long since they've been back. How much do you think that veteran leadership on the Chiefs does help them?
No, I think that for the Chiefs, it means a lot. But like you said, it's going to mean a lot for the Eagles as well. And the Chiefs bested them 2 years ago. So any of those guys that remain, not only do they have a veteran presence, they're probably pissed off. Like, they're going to get the best version of whatever this team is. And so I think that's what's going to make for an incredibly fun game. But there's no doubt that this experience for the Chiefs is so valuable. And it's not just at the Super Bowl. It's always. Like, obviously, people think of the aura that Patrick Mahomes has, and he has a lot. But I was talking with somebody else. I was talking about this right after the Bills game. The Chiefs, basically at a level that we have only seen from the New England Patriots, is the only other team that I can remember, certainly in my lifetime. I know I'm a little bit younger. Some people can maybe talk about teams in, like, the 70s, 80s, whatever.
Right.
The Patriots and the Chiefs are similar in that they beat you mentally long before the ball is even snapped.
Yeah.
They just have that feeling about them. And that veteran presence, sort of getting back to your question, you wonder how much of that is still going to exist even in the Super Bowl. Because I felt like it's a natural thing. You're playing you're playing these future Hall of Famers all across the board on the coaching staff, on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. And it's a daunting task playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that that's also something that we're going to see this week.
I think we've kind of seen that mental, we could say, warfare, right, in air quotes, kind of play out even in the aftermath of that AFC Championship game. You had Sean McDermott come out and say, like, yeah, we were talking to our guys about the refs. Like, you also had the Houston Texans talking about the refs and everything like that. Right. Like, mentally, I think the Chiefs are in, like, they don't They're not worried about that. We've even seen the Chiefs players come out and say, like, hey, what? Why are you guys still talking about this?
Yeah.
This is crazy. Like,
Right.
it's this insane when you guys are talking about this. Mentally, I think that's a really great point about just this team, and just they don't make mistakes when they don't need to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's a very simple concept in football, right? But a lot of teams make mistakes, and the Chiefs are just really good at capitalizing on them.
Yeah, and like you said, the ref thing has kind of taken on a life of its own, where it's like, if you're another team, you're almost like waiting for it. And like that wait, it could be something that makes you even more a little bit undisciplined.
Right.
You go like, oh, okay, well, here's a bad call against us. Well, bad calls happen every single game, right? And so but teams might say, well, that was a bad call. And then they think to themselves, it kind of like cascades in their mind. They go like, oh, well, okay, well, now here we go. The fix is in. Now we got to beat the refs too. And now you're worried about things that you don't need to be worried about. And again, like that goes into the Chiefs beat you mentally before you even kick the ball off. And I just think that, again, it's them and the Patriots. Those are the only two teams that I can remember since I've been watching football over the last 20 years that have that type of aura about them where that's the case.
Let's talk about the trenches a little bit, because that's been a big focal point for the Chiefs. When you talk about Joe Thuney sliding out there to left tackle, they got Mike Caliendo in there playing guard. They've tried so many other tackle situations and players that they can put in there. And Joe Thuney's the one that has stuck so far. How do you see this offensive line going up a pretty stout interior defensive line of Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think that's one of the X factors of a couple that we could talk about here. But it is what you're really going to do with Mike Caliendo playing that guard spot, because Philadelphia, they don't really rotate their defensive linemen. They kind of play left and right pretty constantly with Jalen Carter and Milton Williams. But those two, and obviously like Jordan Davis in the mix there as well. But you're in a situation where Milton Williams is having a great year, and obviously Jalen Carter's a monster. So do you have Creed consistently helping Mike's side to deal with Milton Williams? And if you do, because I think that's the most logical way to go about this, then you have Trey one-on-one with Jalen. And it's like, okay, well, this guy's about to maybe reset the guard market in free agency. So you think, okay, well, if there's anybody that you probably want one-on-one, he's one of those guys. And so you feel good about that, but is anybody a good one-on-one matchup for Jalen Carter? And so I just think how they come together as a five is going to mean a lot. And then I think that Nolan Smith becoming a better pass rusher for this team is an underrated storyline because of exactly what he is as a pass rusher, and that is that speed, outside linebacker type of a pass rusher. Thuney is able to play well at tackle because he knows offensive line play so well. And he can almost manipulate things to where, all right, maybe he doesn't have the best length. Maybe he doesn't have the longest kick slide. But he says to himself, all right, well, if this guy's positioned in a certain way, if I jump set him really quick, he can't even get to my outside shoulder. Yeah. We're already fist fighting, if you will. We're already engaged. We've already made that contact. Yeah. But does Philly, are they able to maybe align Nolan Smith to where they go, okay, we're going to get this guy to be able to rush the outside shoulder of Thuney no matter what. Yeah. And if Thuney doesn't get out to this landmark, Nolan Smith's going to come around and he's going to come free right at Patrick Mahomes. Now, do you sacrifice that versus, okay, well, now you've created a rush lane for Mahomes, because that's sort of the cat and mouse give and take chess game of what goes into this. But it's just that side of the ball is fascinating to me, how it's going to play, and it starts with how the Chiefs are going to adjust with Caliendo playing that guard spot.
I think, as you mentioned, I think the offense and the defense, the Chiefs' offense and the Eagles' defense is the most interesting of this whole thing. Yeah. Eagles' defense has been playing very well in the playoffs. Later on in the season, they've been playing really well. Mahomes and the offense have kind of been getting things clicking as it's been going on in the playoffs, and this offense is starting to fire on all cylinders. Yeah. If you look at, I've spent some time looking at who the Eagles have played recently. I don't want to slight the NFC, right? But it's not quite the caliber of teams that the AFC have put out there in terms of offenses for this Eagles defense to face. Yeah. Now, Jaden Daniels, phenomenal football player. Give him a run for his money, but sometimes you just get beat, right? And the Eagles were able to do that. How different do you think that this Chiefs offense is than any other team that the Eagles have played in this whole year?
No, it's a really great point, and I was just talking with somebody this morning about the difference in quarterback play between the conferences is pretty night and day. I mean, you talk about tier 1 quarterbacks in the NFL. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Joe Burrow. Yeah. All of them in the AFC. And the next guy that you would put in there is probably Justin Herbert, depending on sort of where you are on the Justin Herbert fence, it feels like, also in the AFC, right? I mean, just like C.J. Stroud, up and coming, guess what? AFC, right? I mean, like, it's just all of the great quarterbacks, the biggest threat of quarterbacks, it feels like, are in the AFC. So, yeah, Philly hasn't naturally had to play this level of quarterback play yet, and I think that's a really good point. And, getting back to your question, it's just how Mahomes is able to, like some of the best who have ever played the game, you think you haven't. And over this entire potential three-peat run that they could have here, there have been, I just cannot count how many times I've gone, they've got it here.
Yeah.
And he gets out of it, scrambles, throws the ball away, finds a guy, whatever it is. And so, to me, that's another part of the mental warfare with this team is, as a defense, that can get really, you can get really dejected by that. You can be like,
absolutely,
how many more times do I almost have to sack this guy in this game for us to actually finally get him on the ground and sack him?
Yeah.
And it's like, you almost have, the Eagles, the only way they win this football game is if they have cornerback-like memory as an entire team, where you go, okay, it didn't matter if it was a bad call against us. It didn't matter if we almost had him and we didn't. We got to go next play. We got to be able to play our best. Because, again, you have to have that mental discipline to be able to have then that physical discipline when you're playing the game and being able to go out there and play by play, make the plays that you need to beat the Chiefs. Because there's not even many teams that get the opportunity to get that close. Right. And then, of course, as we've seen over the last 3 years, there's not many that actually capitalize on it to beat them.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, too, because there's a lot better receiver group this year than I think last year.
Yeah.
I don't even, it seems like a statement of fact, right? You don't have guys throwing balls into the other team's hands for interceptions or pick sixes like you did last year. How have you seen kind of the growth of this wide receiver room? They don't even have who is potentially going to be their number one wide receiver in Rashee Rice.
Right.
But you've seen the evolution of Xavier Worthy, the midseason acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins. You had Juju Smith-Schuster come back into the fold. We joke in Kansas City that this is like the metaverse Chiefs team. You got players from all over. You got Kareem Hunt coming back. You got Juju. You got different areas all coming back together. How do you think that receiver room has kind of helped this offense tick?
It's a little bit of like the memes that you see of like, oh, if you showed me this picture 2 years ago, I never would have believed you of like who's in the receiver room.
It would have been so good in 2018, dude. Like that would have been so good,
dude. This is why you draft Xavier Worthy. Yeah. You draft him because of the same exact reason why you traded for Kadarius Toney. Because you hope that world-class speed is universal. Right. And for some players, it's not, right? Yeah. For Kadarius, it wasn't. But you draft Xavier Worthy because, okay, we're drafting him and saying we'd like for him to play a streamlined role here for us. We have Rashee Rice. We have Travis Kelce. We have some of the backup tight ends, backup wide receiver guys, and like this is where we want Worthy to fit. But then when Rice gets hurt, when Kelce is not as effective as he was in years past, now you're in a situation where you go, of course, they've had some, acquiring DeAndre Hopkins and Juju Smith-Schuster and all that sort of goes into it. But you almost say to yourself, we have to reevaluate how we're using our receivers here, and speed wins anywhere.
Right.
In any role. Mm-hmm. So you say to yourself, like, okay, like, Xavier Worthy, we thought you were going to be a little bit more of that. We thought you were going to be a vertical threat for us. Yeah. Now we need you to be a yak guy. And we're comfortable doing that because the ROI for him is still so high because of the speed that he has and the type of athlete he is. So it was one of those draft picks that at the time I was like, all right, well, I wasn't the biggest Xavier Worthy fan coming out of Texas because I felt as though he wasn't a big – I mean, like the yak yards that he got at Texas were a lot of – schemed open stuff. Didn't really have to break a lot of tackles. Like, it was just like him in green grass running a straight line. Or him vertically. I didn't really think that he was the strongest at the catch point deep down the field.
Yes.
So now you're in a situation where he has been asked to do a little bit more of that. And I think he is better than he was at Texas with the yards after catch.
I agree, yeah.
And I think that evolution of him has been really important because, again, they drafted him and his speed to maybe be one thing. But because that type of world-class speed is so translatable, you see why you are, for full pun intended, worthy of that type of a pick, knowing that he could be even something different for our offense, but we're okay putting him in different spots because we know the speed kills in a lot of different angles.
Yeah. Trevor, appreciate you sitting down, taking time with us here at a busy media row.
Yes. Appreciate it, Tucker. Anytime, man.
Appreciate it. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
All right, welcome back. Hanging out here with Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports Football 301, your podcast over there. We got to catch up during Media Row now is what they're calling it over there. We got to catch up during Media Row and find some availability now to talk about kind of Spags and the defense here. Nate, how you doing? How's your week been down in New Orleans?
It's going well. Surviving. I made it to Friday. I leave tomorrow afternoon, and I am very happy actually about it. I love this city though, and so it's been great. It's been absolutely great. Seen a lot of fun people. Got to just interview Kevin O'Connell, which was a lot of fun. It's been a great week, and actually, it really is a great city, even if it is exhausting to be here for 6 hits in a row.
And when I was told people I was going down, they were always like, they were always saying like, "Oh, the city's so dirty. Oh, you're going down to New Orleans." I actually really enjoyed my time, and like that's the first time I've ever been to New Orleans. I enjoyed the city, enjoyed my time there, and there's like a different culture there that I think is very fun, and just everyone was more. I think everyone was nicer than I anticipated too. I don't know what I anticipated going down there, but everyone is so nice there. Like the hospitality is phenomenal.
That's a very real thing. That's something that came back to me too. It's like my uncle played for the Saints for 10 years. And so I used to come down here a little bit more often than when I was younger. And then as a high schooler, I came down here a bunch because I used to go to the Manning Academy, which is in Thibodaux, Louisiana, in the middle of nowhere. And we go to New Orleans first. And so like I spent a lot more time here than I realized. And then it's been, I'd say it's been about 4 or 5 years, 6 years since I've been here. And I was like, oh yeah, I love this city. Oh yeah, this is great. But I'm totally with you. It's like the people here are awesome, and you get the best bartenders you'll ever have. You'll get the waiters are all like actually have personalities. It's like and yes, it's a hosting city, but no, like you said, there's definitely a vibe to it, and a culture to it, which it's a lot of fun to experience.
And speaking of culture, there's the one side of the ball and the Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs just have a great culture in general, but the Chiefs defense has really built a very solid culture with Steve Spagnuolo. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about is the Chiefs defense versus this Eagles offense, because I think there's so many different ways that Spags is going to play against this Eagles offense. Obviously, the big one's going to be stopping the rush and Saquon Barkley. How do you kind of see Spags approaching this Eagles offense?
Trying to bait Jalen Hurts. I feel like that is going to be, it's kind of holding up on the run game, which I think this Chiefs defense has done a really good job of this year. You can pepper them in the run game. You can get, 4 or 5, 6 yard gains. They're about middle of the pack efficiency wise, against the run, as far as success rate goes, but they do not allow a lot of explosives. They're a really good tackling team, which is something I just keep coming back to. And I think that's what they should be doing. I dare them to do 10-play drives, which the Eagles can do, but it always feels like the Eagles start going like, okay, we got to pass now. Okay, we got to throw the ball now. And I think it's surviving those first and second downs and tackling. No one gets out the gap, even if we're bringing a funky blitz, just not yielding any of those big plays, anything even over 10 yards. If you just keep trying to make them do 5 yards, that's kind of what you have to do. And trying to create those third and longs, second and long passing situations where maybe you can blitz them. Maybe you can bring some funky looks. I think the zone blitzes are going to be the turning point of this game, like the most pivotal plays of these games, or this game, I should say, because Steve Spagnuolo, Chiefs defense, very good when they bring zone blitzes. Get over 50% pressure rate when they bring zone blitzes. They're the only one of the defenses that runs man blitzes and zone blitzes over 50% of the time. It was them and the Giants this past year. So he has a whole menu you can get to. But all right, Jalen Hurts. Even I was like, oh, he's been a lot better against the blitz this year. I started diving into it because you got 2 weeks to prep for this. And I started watching some zone blitzes, and I was okay, not as great. I'm not finding he's not really pushing the ball. I think his longest throw against the zone blitz is like 24 yards this year. And then I, started watching all of them, and then would watch the stats, and luckily I have access to it. And he's kind of bottom 10, in every metric, bottom 12 in every metric against zone blitzes. And also he takes a lot of sacks. He has an over 20% sack rate against zone blitzes this year, which is absurd. Anything over 10% is crazy. And that's not pressure to sack. That is straight up sack rate. I think it was, including the playoffs, I think he had been sacked 13 times on 70 dropbacks against zone blitzes. And that's not sustainable for any offense, even one as explosive as the Eagles can be. So that's it. You got to create these sacks. You got to take advantage when they can, and the Chiefs usually do it. So it's kind of a fun strength on, I wouldn't say total weakness, but definitely something that you can really poke at and maybe take advantage of and create that one turnover. Really, last thing I'll say is I'm really seeing. I'm curious if they try and bait him being Jalen Hurts on like a quick out throw to the slot or to a tight end, maybe like trying to throw hot, and then run a palms coverage and have the corner fall off into it. That's I've seen it happen with Spagnuolo defenses. And I'm just like, that's how Hurts likes to beat the blitz sometimes. So I'm like, that just seems like maybe that might be there. So I think that could be a huge turning point in the game. Obviously, a big turnover.
I think it's going to be really interesting too, because we just heard the Buffalo Bills after the AFC Championship game talk about looks that they've seen before and looks that even Spagnuolo did in the game, where he showing a tendency just to break the tendency when he needs to break it. And I think that that's what makes Steve Spagnuolo so good, is he's a tendency breaker in a lot of these things. And we're going to see some. I guarantee we're going to see something from Steve Spagnuolo that we haven't seen in years. And all of a sudden it's just like, oh yeah, he went back to this that he did with the Giants and Tom Brady. That's what that we're going to see that. And I think that's what's so fun. And one of my favorite things, Nate, about Steve Spagnuolo is just, it always seems like as a Chiefs fan watching these games, third quarter gets a little bit shaky, right? It's just like the Chiefs offense is just kind of coasting a little bit. The other team finds a couple points here and there, but then all of a sudden Steve Spagnuolo's like, all right, I'm going to call game. And there's always that moment where Spags is like, all right, here we go. We're going to lock down and we're going to call game. And that's my favorite part of it. And you can tell when it happens because you're like, oh, all right, it's going to happen now. This game's over.
Yeah, he saves the best stuff for last. And what's really cool with Spagnuolo too is that he has no fear. A lot of coaches, especially young blitz happy coaches, they get popped, they get poked in the face a couple times when they try and bring a funky blitz, and they go, okay, never mind. Yeah. And they're doing a fourth down for the season, doing on third down and situations after you're getting peppered, bringing them back to back, like just that's what he does. And we say funky blitzes and everything, or I do a lot, exotics and everything. It's not like unsound. It's just that it's kind of crazy, like to be that creative and to have faith in your players to get to the right spots. And that's because he's a really good coach. That's why he can get away with it. Because the rules and the timing is so good. I just love that fourth down play against the Bills. I mean, it's been discussed ad nauseum. But that was just such a good example of what he does. He's daring you to do the hard thing, you being the offense or the quarterback or the protection, the center, or the offense coordinator, to have the right play call in the right situation at the hardest time, at the most stressful time of your entire season. And so, you can find answers, but it's the most advanced answers. So he's daring you to be sound while he's kind of imitating unsoundness, even though it is sound from the defensive end. So it's just, I really appreciate it as an offensive guy, because it's not rule breakers. It's not rule breakers in the sense of what he's doing. He's breaking your rules on offense, which is that's the good stuff. That's the best stuff in the NFL when coaches and players and teams do that.
I talked about this early on in the week too with Matt Verderam on our podcast that we do. Matt brought up a really good point about you have a different protection caller, and Cam Jurgens is now calling the protections than what Jason Kelce was the last time around. Jalen Hurts doesn't call the protections for this, so I wonder if the familiarity with kind of some of the rules that the Eagles typically have here from the last time they faced him, if Spagnuolo will know those rules and purposely put them in binds. So it's like, okay, these are supposed to be your rules here, but we're gonna make you try to break your rules to defend us. Again, that's just a Spagnuolo chess game at that point.
Right. And no, that's a great point. Even the rhythm of their cadence and everything, he's probably used to, because they never go, if you ever notice, Jalen Hurts never uses a cadence. It's even at home, he does a step.
Huh.
And and that's something it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that, as far as when you pay a quarterback $50 million a year and he can't use a cadence. But I think that is something that they time up, they practice. Do the Eagles have some fake cases, double step, fake hand, anything of that sort? They have time too. Josh Allen's a very good coach as well. But no, that's really good too, is that When Landon Dickerson had to play center, I thought the Eagles' offensive line was getting exposed. I mean, we saw a ton against Commanders. Like, they were just running not even the craziest stuff, just double mug stuff, and Landon was just panicking. So him being back at guard, okay, probably the Eagles were probably happy. But the fact that, yes, they've been practicing full, they're not 100%. Kim Jenkins has a back.
Right.
You know, that's back. You don't have a little bit of a back. It's a back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you don't have a little bit of a back hurt. It's a hard back hurt. It's a big back hurt. So I just think that's interesting too, because you might have to go against Chris Jones, and that's a big matchup for that. Yeah, so that's where they tested. I'm glad he brought, Hurts doesn't override the protections, like Patrick does, or like guys like Dak Prescott or even Josh Allen does, in theory. So that's a very good point though, that like that rhythm of the pre-snap sequence, I think that they could really take advantage of. And again, you give them Spags and Andy Reid 2 weeks. It's just I just feel bad for other teams, because it's like you said originally, Tucker. It's like they're going to be cooking up something, and it's scary what they're cooking up, because they're gonna throw it at you at the time you're least expecting it. So I'm excited to watch it as a neutral fan.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine how that's like to watch it. I think now that the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl so much, Nate, I forgot what it's like to watch Super Bowl as a neutral fan with no rooting interest in it.
It's a good problem. I know. Thank God I was never a guy that was like, Chiefs. I was just like, hey, this is great. I love this. And so it's like, the fact that I never bought into like some other people are like, oh, it's exhausting, fatigue. I mean, shoot, Lamar just didn't get MVP. It's exhausting for this, and that. It's just kind of fun for me to just go, hey man, we're not going to see this a lot in our lives, and maybe we should just enjoy it, because these guys are really good, and these coaches are these are like all-time players and coaches. So yeah, that's kind of, again, as a neutral national guy, I'm glad I had the right mindset for this dynasty that has been built in my lifetime.
We appreciate it in Kansas City too. I'll tell you that. We appreciate it when the national people appreciate it, because we've been through some stuff in KC. There's been all kinds of different stuff go on here, so we feel like it's almost been earned at this point.
Yeah, just let us enjoy it. Like, it's fun. I know, just enjoy the ride. That's like the dream of any fan of any team. Like, you have not only a really good team, you have a really good quarterback, and like, it's like just really fun to cheer for. Why not cheer for it?
Last question I got for you. I appreciate your time hanging out with us here on Super Bowl week. Let's talk about stopping the run. The obviously Saquon Barkley, a huge piece of that Eagles offense, but the Chiefs got some pretty decent defensive linemen up there. I think Mike Pennell's probably going to be featured heavily in this game, because he is such a big run stopper in the middle. Chris Jones can stop the run when he wants to. If he decides he's going to stop the run, he's going to do it. But what do you think about
he does? But it's playoff time, so he definitely will.
Exactly. What do you think about that front, the kind of front seven for the Chiefs?
Yeah, and even the linebacker play, it's three unique guys when they have all three of the big guys or big linebackers out there too, off-ball guys. Like, not for everybody, but they're right for us as far as the Chiefs. But they have rules that make sense. Again, that's the genius of Spags. He puts them in the right spots and doesn't ask them to do crazy things. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have Drew Tranquil rush the passer. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have Leo Chanel set the edge, because that's what they're good at. So might as well have them do it.
Yeah.
So, and have Nick Bolton moving forward, all that. So I think that matters a lot. I think the safety's coming down, like Reed and everything, because Saquon, it's like in the NBA. Saquon's gonna get his. Like, he's going to have runs for an 8-yarder, a first down run. He's going to have a 5-yarder where he breaks his tackle. He's going to get his. It's just not getting frustrated at it all. I remember Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball, had a little feature on Shane Battier. And Shane Battier was guarding Kobe Bryant. And he was talking about, oh yeah, Kobe finished with 42 points or 38 points or something. But then Shane Battier was like, yeah, but he went 12 or 32. Like, he's like, he's gonna score, but that's all I can do. Like, that's a win, is making it hard for him. That's playing Saquon. It's like, yep, there's gonna be a couple where they pop you. There's gonna be one where AJ Brown gets you. It's just, that's what the dudes do in the NFL. But it's just limiting those plays. And so, like, the run game stuff though, one thing the Eagles don't really do, they toyed with it like 1 week or 2 weeks. They don't run fullback runs. And that's something I found recently had been giving the Chiefs a little bit of issues. The Texans game really stood out. The Texans were running all these two-back runs, and the Texans were getting blue this year. So and they were kind of getting after him a little bit. And then I noticed the Bills were using Reggie Gilliam a little bit, number 41, to get some two-back runs. That was one way I'm like, well, that's one thing I've been noticing that the Chiefs have been struggling with. I want to say they were like 26 in success rate against two-back runs or 21 personnel runs. And but then the Eagles don't do that. And it's not like they can go 12 and put Grant Calcaterra as a fullback. Like Grant Calcaterra is not Noah Gray. You know, they're built the same, but Noah Gray actually like fights as a blocker. Grant Calcaterra is a speed bump. So like, all right, I'm not gonna have him lead up on Leo Chanel. You know, like, so I that is one component that I'm curious to, like, okay, that was one clear advantage, but they don't usually do that. Do they try something? I think it's just, there's no like clean answer if you can't tell. It's just because they're going to run a little bit of everything. It's just being sound and just limiting the explosives. But yeah, the Eagles are going to run. They're going to try pull guys and get their big guys on the move, try and pin down the Chiefs defensive linemen. The Chiefs are actually good against pullers. So that's one thing too. They have a natural answer against pullers. Like, they're pretty good at it. So again, it's a kind of a strength on strength thing there, where I just do think it's just try and make it a slog. That's all you can do. Hold on, try and limit the explosive plays in the air, and that's your game plan, and try and get that one turnover.
Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup, Nate. Appreciate your time breaking down the Chiefs defense.
Right.
Go find him on Yahoo Sports Football 301, your podcast there with Charles McDonald. And it's a great podcast. Love the show. Love what you guys do over there. You had a great set at Super Bowl week too. We were talking about it. You got the color and everything.
It was a little better than this. Thank you, by the way, for tolerating this. Yeah, usually I have a little better equipment with my recording situation. So sorry I had to do a little selfie video, everybody. But yeah, no, thanks for adapting with me, Tucker.
It's all good. That's going to do it for this edition. We got more content coming up for you on KC Sports Network. Make sure to stay tuned. Check us out. Follow us on socials at KC Sports Network. That's going to do it. We'll talk to you later.